Hello and welcome. This is Alchemist X, and this is the overview for this week starting September 14th. Or I guess it would technically have been the 15th according to Japan's timeline, but you know what I mean, this current reset. So, Chapter 7 is reached its conclusion, and then Celis has a second Memento released. That's the big thing. Like, of course, when you play the game and it does a little pop-up or it's the picture on the summon screen button. That's like the thing. So overall, the banner overview is going to mostly boil down to how interested are you in Celis. There is one exception to that, though, as far as taking a look at the banners, because there's one very potentially high-value banner that involves coins. But other than that, pretty straightforward. I did want to go over the box event real quick, just because that's the other piece of content that is available. This is the level 2 EX. I wanted to showcase this just because I think it's a really good idea to clear, at the very least, if you don't do anything else, clear the first EX boss, because you can get 6 altered class coins, and those are a fairly scarce item. Characters with alter jobs are becoming more and more prominent, and so there's just a limited supply of those coins, so I would say take any opportunity you can to try and grab them. They announced recently that there's going to be another 2 in the near future. My understanding is that one of them is almost certainly going to be Corvus, and that the other one is going to be a Wadatsumi female unit who doesn't have level 20 Enlightened Bond. So that's not a huge pool. Maybe like Izayui? No idea. Just to go along with that, just grab all of the coins that you can, and definitely keep an eye on normal pool units, especially if they're a unit that you really like, and even if they're not currently usable right now, if they have a job plus, the chances of them getting an alter class just seem to keep going up and up. So it's just something to look out for. There's definitely a few cases where I wish they had done in the shop like a perfect training ticket. Like, I really would have wanted to get one for Flammel. So I mean, I'm farming him now, but it's going to take some time. But this boss in particular, I also wanted to just show it off because it is somewhat mechanically intricate. You can't just stick your highest stat units in and go to town, because they will almost certainly waste all their turns attacking the shadow mages, and they have thick shields on them, and they provoke. So provoke's really easy to get around normally, as long as you have good positioning. Like, if your character has tons of range, then that's going to be a limitation. I like Andex with his line of like straight line teleport move, because then he can get himself to the boss and not worry about provoke. And then if you've got point blank moves, all you have to do is just not be next to 2 enemies at once, and you're totally fine. That was overall the strategy that I chose. But positioning and target priority are 2 things that auto is going to be really, really bad at. So that's going to be a little bit harder to auto, just because of that, not necessarily because of the unit's stats and their capacity to do damage. But on manual, it is not challenging at all. So the only thing you may have to worry about is making sure that you don't get killed by the minion units in the first couple of rounds. They hit kind of hard, but there's a lot of ways to mitigate damage. I just kind of face tanked it and was fine. But if you are still struggling on HP and you really want those alter class tokens, then a good cover unit could go a long way for that. Aside from that, it was also a good opportunity for my Dios to showcase his worthiness as a unit in just another form of content. I'm really glad that I got him. It was not something that I really planned on, not that there was much time to plan between his announcement and his release. But in terms of being good in arena and being good in PvP, definitely worth the gems that I spent on him, mostly because of the TAGA pay system. It would have been a little too pricey for me otherwise. And his good performance comes without his second Memento. So that's a good sign. I like it when units can function really well despite technically not being complete. And then, of course, Lindrake is here just because he's Lindrake. I was having trouble filling out that 4th slot. When I was doing it on the hard boss, I was using Celliers to alchemic freeze the boss, because the boss turns mattered a lot more in that mode. But for the EX mode, I just picked somebody who could do a bunch of damage, especially somebody good as far as doing damage on their reactive, just to make the most out of every turn. But it wasn't a huge amount of trouble. Just the tried and true strategy of put a bunch of alchemic overload on them and then just detonate it. And it worked like a charm. Claybell was somewhat helpful in terms of the debuff resistance and just keeping everybody quickened. Obviously, you can't quicken Lindrake with her map effect, but really just Dios is kind of the hyper carry here. And then Andex is helping out with some just supplemental damage and more alchemic overload to detonate. So yeah, I definitely have weird mixed feelings about maps like this, because I like it when they have something that you could consider mechanically intricate, but when it's not really auto-friendly, or at least when it's like runs so contrary to how the AI operates, and it's so totally like avoidable stuff. Like they could definitely give their AI better target priority, but whatever. Let's save that rant for another day, and let's go ahead and take a look at the banners. And here we are at the banners. So as I mentioned earlier, there's really not a lot to talk about. There are two exactly that I think are worth your time, potentially. One is the Celis banner. That's the obvious one. If you are interested in Celis, then this is the banner. To get the new Memento, it's just, you know, typical 9-step with a selector. Hopefully you already have Celis, just because there's no guarantee you could get both of these Mementos. And of course the priority would always be the newest one. There were a lot of chances in the past, so I am going to assume that for everybody who is the most excited about this release, that part is already taken care of. If you're not in that camp and you don't have either and you want both, if you're really, really patient, I'd say get the new one now, because the next chance to get it is going to be farther away than the chance to get Celis' original Memento, just because you're more likely to encounter a situation like a 7-step with a selector, and newer things aren't going to be featured on them for a few months. So just something to think about. Aside from that, the only other banner that I think is even worth talking about is this 7-step featuring the Genesis protagonists. I'm a little confused why Ignacio's not featured there. Pretty sure he's also a protagonist unit, as evidenced by his unique materials, but whatever, that's not really important. So the units by themselves, very, very good units among them, but they're all quite old, and, you know, last Golden Week we were given one of them for free. So if you are still rounding out your collection, then it's definitely an opportunity to do that, and you could do a lot worse, because you also get 1,000 coins that you can use to buy shards of units. But that by itself is a little bit dicey in terms of how worth it is going to be. However, if you are currently in the process of raising, say, Yaris version 2 or Ananji especially, just because they haven't been available via CoinShop for nearly as long, like if you're working on them and you really want to get either one of these units or get some gates capped out, like say gate 7, then suddenly this banner becomes very, very good, because you can just accomplish 2 goals at once in 7 steps, which is a pretty good price as far as gems go. But if only one of those things is true, then it still could be good. It depends on how high priority that one thing is going to be. But just it's not quite on the level of must pull the way it would be if they're both true. And obviously if neither are true, then, you know, skip. But yeah, otherwise, I might do this myself. Not sure yet. I'm a little bit reluctant to spend that many gems at the moment, even though there are a lot of gems available via box events at the moment, just because so many of them are rerunning. I'd like to see if anything else is announced for next week that might help me decide. Right now I'm still leaning no, but we'll see what happens. If I was going to do it, it would be for Daphne, just because aside from Emil and Mira is the only one I don't have, and I have both of her mementos, so, and a giant pile of water shards. So it's definitely a possibility, just need a little more information going forward. So yeah, that is all I have got for this week for Alchemist Code. So if you are summoning this week, I wish you good luck, and I will see you all next time.